Hello and welcome to the Southern Ontario Sports Podcast. This is the week of Monday, January 19th. I'm Adam Thomas alongside Steve Resnick. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to kick the show off. Steve, how's things been in Toronto the past couple weeks?
Not too bad over here personally for the sports teams. Bit on the other hand, the Leafs and even the Raptors now seem to be succumbing to the Toronto sports curse.
Oh man, it's rough in Toronto. Hopefully the Raptors come out of this in one piece. I think they will. Give them a little bit of time, but the Leafs, dumpster fire at full burn right now. But you know what? Today is not about hockey. It's not about basketball. It's not about baseball. We're going to talk Super Bowl and the NFL more generally, of course. The Super Bowl to feature New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks with a couple of interesting wins this past week. Before we get into all that Super Bowl stuff, and we're going to talk about that for the majority of the show, the Buffalo Bills, the hometown Bills, did make a big move in signing Rex Ryan after Coach Marone decided to up and leave after a relatively productive season. Steve, before we talk some of the numbers and things like that, what's your gut feeling on Ryan? Are you pro Ryan or not so hot on him?
I'm pro this hire. I think for the Bills, they definitely want, or not necessarily want, but definitely it's good for a team like that to get a coach with big personality who's able to be good in press conferences. And if the team has a bad week, he's always be able to deflect pressure. And he's proven that with an elite defense, he can do some serious damage.
Yeah, I will give you that. He did have a couple teams that went to the AFC Championship. You know, they had losses in 09 and 10 with a couple good defenses. Overall, I don't know. I'm guess I'm a little bit unsold at this point. It's a great move in the sense of it's a big name. It's a big character. He's got a personality. I think he fits well with what the Buffalo fan likes. You know, Buffalo's a pretty hardworking city, and that whole mantra that they've got down there. So that works for me. There's almost just too many similarities between the Jets of the last 4 or 5 years and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, are you talking about a guy who can get us to the playoffs? That's awesome. That's something the Buffalo Bills need to do. So we can't go, too high on ourselves over here. But at the end of the day, Rex Ryan, 46-50 in 6 seasons with the Jets. You know, he went 9-7, 11-5 in those playoff runs. But beyond that, didn't finish better than 500. Do you think Stevie's got what it takes to get this team to a 10-6 season or better?
I think he does. I mean, especially if he's just looking for 1 or 2 years of success and not necessarily long-term 10, 15-year dynasty type thing that he's trying to build, I think he definitely can pull it off. The division, I mean, New England, they're always going to be strong, it seems, but the Jets are definitely not what they used to be, especially now without Rex, and the Dolphins are perpetually inconsistent, so I think there definitely is room there for the Bills to have a 10-6, maybe even an 11-5 season if everything goes right in all facets, but that's saying something. But I still think it is possible for him to lead him to a playoff berth.
All right, so we'll call it there. We'll go for a second here and talk maybe about the positives he brings and get into this a little bit. I mean, I think he did a good job with his opening press conference. Definitely made a bit of headway with the fan base and the media. Again, really showing that personality off, which is something that I think is a plus on the hire myself. He is a great defensive mind. I think that's been pretty well established. He's had some top-notch defenses, including recently in New York. So hopefully that carries over. And of course, with some names like Mario Williams, Darius, Kyle Williams, Jerry Hughes, Denoris Searcy on that Bills defense, there's a lot for him to work with. And I think he's a good fit in that sense. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get to 10-6, which I think you need right now in the AFC with the competition around, especially the Patriots. They seem to never go away. And that'll be still the foe of Rex Ryan. On the negative side, I think for me, I kind of like Doug Marone. I was kind of disappointed when he decided to walk away. Losing Kyle Orton was a little bit weird as well to retirement, but it seems like everybody just bailed on this team. So I think if it's not broke, you don't fix it. But evidently, with Marone walking away, we're left with Rex Ryan, who's not a bad name for the position. And maybe he can take him to 10-6, but I say next year they do not finish better than the 9-7 they had this season.
Yeah, I don't think I'll argue that next year they won't be making a postseason berth, but given a couple of years under his regime, If he can develop some sort of offensive game, I do think that within 2 to 3 years, I'll say, to give you one time, don't temper that enthusiasm, that the Bills can get a playoff berth within 2 to 3 years.
All right, so 3 years, we've got a 10-6 season. I think that's what it's going to take. I really hope they do get there, and hopefully, I guess the answer for the Bills again, it's going to come down to this quarterback situation. We're going to have to find out if EJ Manuel is the guy in any way, shape, or form. Real quick, things are a bit tough after the Sammy Watkins move coming into the draft this year, so it might be up to a journeyman quarterback signing in the offseason to bolster that offensive unit a little bit. And if Rex Ryan maybe can develop the run game, Fred Jackson's been real durable. We'll see what happens with Spiller. He might walk in the offseason. But if that running game can continue in Buffalo and the defense, there's no reason to believe they can't reproduce something similar to this season. Maybe we've got a chance. So let's go Sexy Rexy, go Buffalo, and we'll see you in about, 7-8 months?
Sounds about right.
All right. So over to the Super Bowl, talking a little bit about Green Bay, Seattle, talking a little bit about New England and Indy. Before we get into things, Steve, your thoughts there on that AFC Championship? New England going just wild in a rout of Indy.
Yeah, I don't think whether the balls were inflated or deflated, which we'll touch on later, had too much of an impact either way, in that New England was out to show that their prior beatdowns of Indy were no fluke, and it was going to happen again. And Brady and Belichick are arguably the greatest coach-quarterback duo ever now.
Yeah. And Jim Irsay over in there in Indianapolis, he must be so sick of Tom Brady, whether it's Peyton Manning or evidently Andrew Luck. There will be nobody happier in the NFL when Tom Brady eventually retires than Jim Irsay, is my opinion. And as great as Andrew Luck is, and as bright of a future as he has, he did not come anywhere near the performance that Brady turned in. And New England, I don't even know if they played their best football in that first half, but you can't argue with the outcome, and they were certainly the better team at home on Sunday. Flipping the coin to the Seattle Green Bay game, definitely a different feel to this one. I'm still in shell shock. I got to be honest. I'm definitely a secondary fan of the Green Bay Packers since the Favre days, and this one was tough to swallow. Steve, you want to take us away?
I can't say I have any loyalty to either Seattle or Green Bay, but watching that game, you felt kind of bad for Green Bay fans. It was just the way they lost was just heartbreaking. I mean, I think the win probability chart had them at like 99.9% with after that interception with about 4 minutes left. But sometimes it just doesn't turn out in your favor. And clearly Seattle, whatever it is with their fans in that stadium, Marshawn Lynch being unstoppable, they just seem for now like a team of destiny again.
This is part of my argument I'll chat about here in a minute when we get down to the Patriots-Seahawks game. But how bad can a game go for a team and they still manage to win it? I think you pretty much saw your answer on Sunday in Seattle's favor. I mean, so just all the craziness aside, with that interception 5 minutes to go, how do they lose the game? You look at the 2-point convert. That was a miniature Hail Mary.
And what is the defense of that? What is Clinton Dix doing on that?
I don't know. And that's just, I can't, and it's still boggling. And I'm, again, still in a little bit of shock about the whole thing. I'm not even a true bleeding Green Bay fan by any stretch. Those people must be just in disarray. But the amount of things that lined up for the Seahawks, quite impressive. We talked maybe a while ago about the Kansas City Royals being a team of destiny. It didn't pan out for them, but Seattle's got that destiny tag written all over them from an NFL perspective. So maybe with that, we'll hop into our breakdown of the Super Bowl itself. Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots, neutral ground, of course, in Arizona, coming up February 1st. Steve, your initial thoughts on that matchup, and maybe who's your favorite coming into it, if you have?
I can't say I'm a fan again of either of these teams, but again, I'm neither a hater of either of these teams, and it seems that both these franchises have quite a few haters, whether it be new success or long-term sustained success in New England's case. But I think in this case, with there not being weather a factor and Seattle's D getting pretty banged up last game and looking at least somewhat vulnerable against Aaron Rodgers in the first half, the way he was moving the ball, I think Tom Brady's got one more in him, and I think the Patriots right now, unless some reports come out, Gronkowski gets hurt, maybe. I like the Patriots' chances.
Yeah, and terrific Tom is back for another one. Not playing the Giants in this Super Bowl, and he's been historically pretty darn good in Super Bowls that the New York Giants are not his opponent. I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite coming into this one. I took a peek over on the lines, and right now the Patriots are favored by a small 2 points, which might as well be a split hair down the middle. My simple answer here is whichever team plays their game best is the winner. The fewest mistakes will be the winner. I think if Seattle runs the ball, they play a little defense, there's nothing you're going to do to stop them. On the other side of it, if Tom Brady comes out, gets the ball moving through the air, a little bit of run support if they need it, and they get out to a quick lead, the defense can compete in New England, and you're not going to catch them. So we'll see which team, in my opinion, can lay down their brand of football with more authority is going to be the winner there. If you're asking me for a pick, I will very, very, very loosely take New England and the magic that is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick to do it once again. Um, ramming it down the throat of a Buffalo Bills fan yet again. So I guess one thing that's come up a little bit here recently, Ray Lewis was on Stephen A. Smith's podcast on Sirius Talk Radio. And he had some interesting comments about Mr. Tom Brady. I'll just paraphrase them here real quickly. Basically, he says, in reference to the tuck rule back against the Oakland Raiders in the Snow Bowl years and years ago, they don't go to that championship game. They don't go to that championship game if that tuck rule, if that ball is not called a tuck. It's a fumble. Charles Woodson made that man clearly fumble the ball, and they named it a tuck rule. Something that we've never heard of in today's game. So now you've got to ask yourself, when did the legacy really start? And, before all the New England Patriots fans pick up on this podcast, I don't want to get too far gone here. Ray Lewis later backtracked and kind of softened his comments, but it's an interesting talking point, I think, Steve. And, you got to wonder, I heard a few arguments made along the lines of this story. And does Tom Brady, without that first Super Bowl, is he more of a Ben Roethlisberger type player? Big Ben's not going to be forgotten anytime soon, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not in the Joe Montana talk, that type of quarterback where, of course, Tom Brady is. So what's the New England legacy in your eyes? What's Tom Brady in your eyes? And maybe what are your thoughts on whether or not that tuck rule call happens and how his career turns out?
I don't really think those comments are going to do much to take away from Tom Brady's legacy. I think it's a little sour grapes from a former Ravens player who saw his team lose to New England in the playoffs this year. That being said, it definitely would take away a little bit if he had one less title. But that being said, I don't think much would have changed in terms of his career going forward. He still would have been playing over Drew Bledsoe. He still would have put up those numbers. The tuck rule doesn't put up all those stats for him, and getting them all those return trips to the playoffs and the AFC championships and the eventual Super Bowl. So I really don't think that plays too much of an impact, even if it were to have never happened, so to speak. Going back to the play initially, I think it's hard to say that anyone could have seen that play happen and instantaneously say, oh, that's a tuck rule, because I'm pretty sure nobody was aware what that was at the time. But sometimes that seems to be the case, and you got to live with the human error of referees sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm of the same mind. It is an interesting thought. You take away that Super Bowl, and maybe things do look a little differently. But for me, pardon me, it comes down to just the longevity of this whole Patriots movement here with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Belichick, hired in 2000. Not that it has anything to do with the legacy, but they opened up Gillette Stadium in 2002, and it's just been the backdrop for success for the better part of a decade now. I don't think there's much you can say about Tom Brady. He's been doing it for season after season for over a decade now. He's got 3 Super Bowls. This will be the 6th start of his career, which is an NFL record. They got the perfect season in there, although it didn't end with the Super Bowl. Some just astronomical numbers along the way with Randy Moss and things of that sort. He won't be an all-time career leader among quarterbacks, but still very respectable. I don't think his legacy is tarnished much um, by any of those comments or the implication of them. But definitely one of the better ones we've had in the year 2000 and beyond. Which brings us to the Seahawks, who are doing it a little bit differently more recently. Some newer success there with them. Are they a legacy yet, Steve, or is this still something that's budding and just beginning?
I think it's hard to argue that if they were to win back-to-back titles, to not call them at least a mini dynasty would be hard to do. I mean, in this age of parity, I mean, the last repeat Super Bowl champions were the Patriots themselves, so I think you'd kind of have to give them at least that mini dynasty title. And again, with Russell Wilson, he just seems like that type of guy that no matter what, no matter how badly it looks, that he's just going to come out victorious at the end. He just has that knack for getting the win. I mean, last week definitely didn't see it coming out a couple times, even during this regular season at the beginning of the year. Didn't look great for Seattle, and yet here they are again, seeming rolling into the Super Bowl. Their defense clicking on mostly all cylinders again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about Russell Wilson. He just gives you that feeling that I don't know how, but he is going to get it done, and they don't necessarily rely on him every game. Again, if Marshawn's moving those chains, they have no problem playing a little hard nosed football. Um, Pete Carroll's been with this team for 5 years now. They've been very productive over his run. Of course, most recently the Super Bowl this year, the championship last year. They had a great season the year prior to that, after a couple of less impressive years under Carroll's tutelage. But this team over the last 3 years has been a dominant force. They've kind of got that legend of the 12th man out there in Seattle, which only adds to the allure of this kind of at least mini dynasty. And I, for one, am not going to hesitate. I'm going to call them a dynasty. If they win the Super Bowl on February 1st, they are a dynasty. Again, as you mentioned, being the first team to do it back to back since the Patriots, who will now be their opponent, and that's kind of a symbolic passing of the torch as well in my eyes. And I think you can't take any away from the Seahawks. They've been pretty damn good for 3.5, 4 years now, and a real force to be reckoned with. So let's stamp them a dynasty, I think. And speaking of dynasty and just sort of the legacy of it all, we've got to talk here about the Patriots and their cheating ways. Um, we've got Deflategate, PSI Gate, call it what you want. Seriously, New England, like I'm not gonna. Okay, I'm not gonna say that this is gonna cost them the game against Indianapolis. It's come out now. They've had 11 of 12 balls in that game that they supplied were found to be up to 2 pounds less than the regulated limit, and this is not enough to sway a game that finished as it did there in New England. But in my eyes, Stephen, I don't know if you have a different opinion. You're 2 pounds less than the described regulation, which is a 16% difference. That's circumventing the rules, and that's kind of cheating. I don't know if you lose your Super Bowl shot for it, but cheating's cheating, right, Steve?
There definitely should be a penalty enforced, especially if it's the case where it's, I think, 11 of the balls were severely underinflated. So if it's that drastic, I mean, you want to at least make a note to all the other teams out there, like, hey, if you try this and we catch you, there's some serious repercussions for that. Again, that being said, though, I don't think that's the reason they won last week or have been winning games over the last decade, or should it take away their Super Bowl victory? But again, it's just why even bother doing it in that case? It just sort of takes away from your win and gives people another talking point to hack away and put another asterisk beside a title if you're to win it.
Yeah, the interesting question: why do you even do it? And I suppose the inherent answer is you do it because it helps, right? And I'm not going to sit here and be naive and believe Tom Brady. Come on, Tom Brady. He knows what a football feels like, right? He's going to know if this thing's soft or hard, whatever. He's going to tell his guy, listen, bud, you got to pump that thing up. I got to get a better grip. The story goes that a more deflated football be easier to grab, easier to throw in the conditions, and that's all fine. But no way an all-pro like Tom Brady is not going to know if this football is subpar. And again, New England supplying those balls. And at the end of the day, this is the same thing as Spygate for me. I don't think New England needed to do that to win. They didn't need to be under that Spygate scandal. They were, I think, a good enough team to succeed. Just like this past Sunday, I don't think deflating the balls is going to be the difference. So why even do it if all it's going to do is leave a couple black eyes? But this is the New England Patriots. This is kind of Bill Belichick. He's sort of the shady guy under that ratty hoodie. And Tom Brady's just the golden boy, send him out, and hopefully it all smooths over, right? So I don't know if it affects their legacy, but I guess they do have a few asterisks, right, Steve?
It's just the last asterisk on a long PR season for Roger Goodell, I guess.
Oh boy, yeah, he's going to be pretty happy when this one wraps up, I think, eh?
Yeah, it's about time. He needs the offseason more than anyone.
All right, so I don't know if you have any parting thoughts here on the Super Bowl, Steve. I'm all out myself. Anything you want to say before we get towards the end of the show?
I'm hoping for a good game. I expect it to be one. That being said, I think most people expected that last year, and we had a 35-point difference for the final score. So hopefully it's a bit more of an entertaining game this time around.
Yeah, nail on the head there, buddy. Last year was supposed to be a pretty good one. Yeah, I hope the same. I hope the same for this year, and hopefully we're not disappointed. I think one thing the Patriots have shown is they are basically never out of a football game. So I think they're good for it. And again, Seattle, they've got some sort of destiny thing going for them. If they were in bad a shape as they were against Green Bay and still managed to win, I don't know what can stop them. So, cheers to a good game and a couple Sundays. Before we do sign off, though, we have a couple quick orders of business. We do want to do our predict and pick for the week, but before we get to that, being the SOS podcast, of course, with a heavy tilt towards Southern Ontario and particularly the Toronto Maple Leafs and Ottawa Senators, we can't fail to acknowledge the big game tonight, Steve, right here in Ottawa. Toronto rolls in. Security's been beefed up down to the Canadian Tire Center. We will not have any jerseys flying on the ice tonight to save the Leafs some dignity and grace. You looking forward to this one? You tuning in, Steve?
I will be tuning in. I don't know if it's more for sadistic reasons or not at this point, but at least it's good entertainment. I wouldn't put it past any of these fans to get a jersey on the ice. You'd be surprised how creative some of them are. That being said, though, they always seem to win at the most inopportune times for them. So now that they seem to have the fans all in order of tanking straight ahead, they'll probably pull off a couple game win streak between now and after the All-Star break.
That's it with the Leafs. You wouldn't have the lows if you didn't have the highs, right, buddy? So maybe they'll get a win here in Ottawa. It's a epic battle of the 10th and 12th place teams in the conference, so I'm excited to tune in. Hopefully we see a few jerseys fly. That's always entertaining, and we'll leave it at that. So we'll roll right in here to the predict and pick for the week. Just to update everybody, our last session, Seattle versus Carolina, I took that one down, 31-17 win. So not only was I right, Steve, but I covered the spread on that one. And it was
You did, yeah.
win. So I feel good about that because, you did have the almost 8 points going against you. So good that at least covered. Chicago, Washington, we were both wrong. And the Rangers LA Stanley Cup rematch, we were again both wrong as the Rangers took that one out. So Steve, you went 0-3 on the week. I went 1-2, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm 2-4 overall on the year. Just out in front of you, you're sitting at 1-5. So we've both got a little bit of work to do here. Why not start this week here? Of course, we'll lead off with our Super Bowl prediction. So Steve, Seattle or New England for the win?
I'm going to take New England. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I don't think it's going to be an absolute defensive struggle either. So I think it'll be somewhere around 27-20, 27-19 maybe in New England's favor.
All right, well, I'm not going to differ from you here. I'm going to take New England. I'm going to take them by a field goal, though. They do it in dramatic fashion. Probably they're the last team to score 3 points through the uprights with 50 seconds on the clock. There's my call.
Their kicker's named Steven. I'm not upset with that prediction.
I think the spelling's different, though, right?
It is.
Okay, so it doesn't even count.
It's close enough.
All right, close enough. Second prediction of the week, Leafs Senators tonight here in Ottawa, 7 p.m. start. We got 5 minutes till puck drop. Who's your pick, Steve?
Leafs are trying to avoid their worst stretch since November of 1990 if they lose tonight in regulation. So here's for a Leafs victory tonight over the Senators. James Reimer's going to come up big.
Steve, I'm sorry you're wrong on this one. The Leafs will need at least one goal to win a hockey game, and there's no guarantees on that right now.
Not true. Senators, you can win 1-0 in a shootout. Not true.
Well, okay. Well, you still have to find the puck eventually has to get across the red line where the goaltender guards it, and I'm not confident that that's happening in any way, shape, or form. Let's say 2-1 Ottawa, despite Toronto getting one lowly goal. 2-1 Ottawa tonight in a hard-fought division rivalry in the nation's capital. And our last prediction of the week, we'll give a slight nod to the joke fest that has become the NHL All-Star Weekend. We have Team Foligno versus Team Taze coming up this Sunday. Steve, who you backing?
I am going to take the hometown Team Foligno. I don't think the NHL is going to have him as a team captain just to have his team get destroyed by former division rival Chicago player Jonathan Toews and his team. So I'm taking Team Foligno. Probably they tend to get close by the end, so it'll probably be 2-goal margin, maybe 12-10, 13-11 at the very end of it, and probably look for a Columbus player to somehow get MVP, whether it be Bobrovsky or Foligno somehow, some way.
Yeah, and just really quickly here, before we can go anywhere, how's this Team Foligno and not Team Bob? Like, how is Bobrovsky getting no love here? He's definitely going to be in line for an MVP vote of the game for that exact reason, I think. But I am going Team Taze all the way. I could not wake up and look myself in the mirror if I ever picked Team Foligno for anything. So Team Taze, despite division rivalry, against all odds, whatever you got, old-time foes, I don't care. Team Taze walking away with this one for my prediction this week. So there you have it. We'll see if we improve on those pretty poor overall records, Steve. We'll wrap up the show here. It's been a fun one, a little bit of Super Bowl chat. So I guess we'll see you probably once that Super Bowl wraps up. You doing anything for the big game in particular?
Probably nothing too crazy. Get together with a few friends, take it in. Probably somewhere where get access to some of those Super Bowl commercials.
Yes, the Super Bowl commercials. We'll chat those when we come back. I'm going to head over to my parents. They do an annual little party down there, so we got some good food, and we'll catch the game. Hopefully it's a good one. And I guess that's about it. So, Steve, take care of yourself, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Bye now.